Welcome to Our Drums Musicians. I'm your host Luke, and today I'm joined by the incredible Nat Bartsch, a pianist, composer, producer, and advocate whose music sits beautifully between neoclassical, jazz, and ambient influences. At the time of recording in 2024, Nat Bartsch was the artist in residence at the Melbourne Recital Centre, and she was preparing for the release of her stunning album, Forever Changed. I was lucky enough to hear the album before speaking with her, and it is absolutely beautiful. Since then, friends and I have attended the album launch, and it was such a special experience. In this episode, we discuss the recording process, the impact of surround sound and Atmos mixing, and the deeply personal stories behind the music. We also dive into Nat's experience as a neurodivergent artist, her autism and ADHD diagnoses, and how they've shaped her creativity. We discuss her work making the music industry more inclusive, including neurodiverse-friendly listening spaces. On the business side, we talk about her decision to self-manage, launching Amica Records, and establishing Amica Familia, a mentoring initiative supporting emerging artists. This was a brilliant conversation with one of the most thoughtful and innovative musicians in Australia today. I hope you enjoy. Yeah, well, thanks so much for doing this, Nat.
Pleasure.
Yeah, I'm such a big fan of your music.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Yeah, it was just I saw you doing the Recital Centre thing, and I was like, maybe I could ask. So thank you so much for saying yes.
Oh, no. Thank you for asking me. It's amazing what you've created in such a short time. I feel like it's an incredible cross-section of the music industry in Melbourne that you've been speaking with. So it's really nice to just contribute my small corner of that.
Oh, well, thank you. It's nice, trying to have, as many different kinds of music as possible, and your music nicely fits into the in between of so many different of the music scenes.
Yes,
so
that's
it's the perfect connector from the jazz to classical and other contemporary music worlds.
Yes, yeah, I would agree with that. And Melbourne's so good the way it's just got an incredibly diverse music scene. There's kind of a place almost for anything here, which is so special.
Can I ask, what is the most recent album that you've listened to? Other than, because you've been mixing your record.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, my own album in Atmos yesterday. This is going to be a really funny way to start, but I was just listening to Meshuggah in the car on the way here.
Nice. That's so unexpected.
Probably an answer you weren't expecting.
No, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Is that a regular go-to?
Well, I've only just started getting into Meshuggah. My partner Hayden is a long-time fan, and he played it once to my son, and he was like, yeah, this is awesome. And I used to listen to heavier music when I was a teenager, early 20s, and I found myself going back to some of those bands in the last couple of years, like At the Drive-In and She Had and stuff like that. And I suddenly realised that a lot of neurodivergent people seem to get into really heavy music, and Meshuggah in particular, I think.
Yeah, right.
And so I was like, what is it about that band? And so I put on Bleed, and at first I was like, yeah, this is nice. And it's I appreciated the musicianship and stuff. And then once I started kind of listening to all the interlocking rhythms and stuff, I was like, wow, my jaw is really relaxed. I feel really calm. This is fascinating. So, it's probably an out-of-the-box answer to your question, considering I'm a purveyor of very calm, quiet music, but also the way that it makes me feel calm is also perhaps an unusual reason to listen to Meshuggah. But yeah,
that's fascinating that you're it has a calming effect, even though maybe sonically it wouldn't be described as calm.
No, not at all. And because I know that probably for some people they need to listen to epic music because they've got lots of, big emotions to get out of their system. And maybe to a certain extent that's true for someone like me when I listen to what I would call sensory seeking music. It's an outlet for transferring energy from you out into the world or something like that. But I wouldn't say that's I don't come to that music going like, oh, I've got this, I'm really angry, I want to emote and I'm going to put on heavy music or something. It's more, I just feel like I want to immerse myself in sound. And there's a whole bunch of genres that I've realised are a big, they serve a big role for me in doing that. Because it's very unusual for me to actually listen to the type of music that I often create for others. I'm more likely to listen to like 80s synth pop or minimalism or heavy music or electronic music. And I think that speaks a little bit to my need to kind of be in a sonic space, like to have a wall of sound that I can kind of soak in. Yeah, so that's something that I've been kind of considering in my own music in recent times as well.
How's the like you mentioned, like Atmos and the surround sound mix and stuff you're doing? Like, has that just like, I don't know, added such a like an expansion next layer moment to that like wall of sound where now you're completely absorbed in it because sound is coming from like literally every direction?
It's quite rare, I guess, to have the listening experience of Atmos out in the world. In fact, probably the only time I'm going to hear my record in Atmos is in the Atmos studio we're mixing it in. I'd like to think maybe in 10 years, especially once we're past this economic slump, that people might think about, like creating products or buying speaker systems. You know how people went through that phase maybe 20 years ago where they started to get the home theatre system? And that's still a thing today, but what would it be like to use that type of concept in the home with speaker configurations to do deep listening to music? A bit like people got into buying vinyl records again and all that type of thing. I'd like to think that's where we're headed, but at the moment I guess it's more the domain of the streaming services and Apple Music and Tidal, that where you're able to listen to Atmos music in binaural, so you're using headphones to kind of simulate being in a space that's like an Atmos studio. And it certainly gives you the potential to think about the placement of things in the music in a 360-degree way, or actually more than that because it's also above you, like speakers in the roof. But it's kind of, I feel like we're at the beginning of that era in music, and there's also some viability issues with it, I think, because it is quite expensive for the regular musician to produce an album at all. I mean, there is so much that musicians have been able to start doing from home and do themselves compared to when I started making records, where you were pretty much beholden to booking a studio and working with an audio engineer and mastering engineer and start to finish, doing it that way. Or at least there would have been people recording stuff from home, but it wasn't really something on my radar, or I don't think it was done very much. But since then, it's become much more accessible for people to learn how to use a recording software. And I mean, even simply sitting here in this lounge room having a podcast recording, you can buy podcast recording kits for like a couple $100 at Manny's or whatever. So it's a brave new world, and there's lots that musicians are empowered to do. But Atmos probably represents kind of the old school way where you do need a lot of expertise and access to the right kind of studio, and it adds a lot of cost. And at the moment, when these recordings go on to Apple Music or similar, I don't think artists are actually able to access much data about how many listeners are actually hearing the music in Atmos, or how many are preferencing turning that on if they don't have it happen automatically. So it's really hard to make a cost-benefit analysis about Atmos. And for me, I have the privilege of being able to do it, but also I'm motivated to do it. It's because it's still a big time commitment and cost, but I'm also motivated to do it because, as you say, there's something about that format that I'm really drawn to with the music I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you are creating this sort of immersive sensory seeking music that you hope that the listener can soak themselves in, then it does seem like the right kind of fit. And same for live surround sound as well, which is kind of a different thing altogether. But it's like, yeah, maybe I'm the person to make the silly decision to to spend all the hours on it, because it represents my musical values, rather than doing it because you feel like you're supposed to, because you think you might get better playlists on Apple Music, or because it will make your record feel more credible against all the artists from major labels or something. You know, those sorts of reasons I think would be very terrible to decide to do Atmos. But for me, it makes sense aesthetically, and it's in line with my values creatively at the moment. So.
Yeah, cool. It's exciting. You know, like
yeah.
in a pioneering space. I remember old albums that were like 5.1 mixed.
Oh, yeah.
But like we only had a couple of them at home. It was like very rare, but when one came on, it was like, oh, this is just so different.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because I reckon also your family home must have been unusual in that you had two at all. Because I don't really remember 5.1 albums being... I mean, I remember music DVDs where it would have been mixed in 5.1, like seeing a live concert or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a few niche, like, you know, Steely Dan, like audiophile records.
If anyone was going to do it, it would have been Steely Dan. Yeah. I wonder if they're doing Atmos now. Or, well, yeah.
That'd be fascinating to look at how they're currently releasing. Because I think they put out a record last year.
Yeah, because, they would be spearheading all of that stuff. I think what's funny is there's all those records from history now getting mixed in Atmos or remastered. And, what do those artists think of the Atmos mixes of their records?
Yeah.
Are they kind of like, this is cool, I wish they could have done that back in the 70s? Or is it more like, why? I don't know.
Yeah, what are you doing to my music?
I like the old way. I had the experience of, I got really into Taylor Swift's Midnight's album, and then after about listening to it for a year, I heard the Atmos version because I was on Tidal. So if you're on Apple Music and you have AirPods, the Atmos versions actually play, I think, automatically.
Okay.
But on Tidal, it's more like a separate album that you can click on and listen to the Atmos version. And all of a sudden I was hearing all these different backing vocals and tambourines and stuff that were sort of placed in the mix almost like behind me or to the sides. And that process of being really familiar with a record and then hearing it in Atmos, it was almost a bit unsettling. Like I didn't hear those things in the original mix.
Wow.
And this is weird. I feel like there's people behind me. But so that's what makes me think, you know. Like I noticed, was it Alicia Keys? She had a record that got like best Atmos mix at the last Grammys.
Yeah.
So someone had gone back and gone, was it Songs in the Key of...
Oh, yeah.
Hold on, what's the name of her album? I can't remember.
Yeah, what is it? Key of Life is Stevie Wonder.
That's Stevie Wonder. Is it A minor or something? Just something straight as...
It could be A minor.
Simple classic.
Yeah. Just jumping in quickly, Songs in A minor is the Alicia Keys record from 2001 that we were both thinking of. But that's not the record that won the Grammy. That record is The Diary of Alicia Keys, her 2003 album, which contained the massive hit If I Ain't Got You. So in 2024, George Mazenberg and Eric Schilling, Michael Romanowski, Alicia Keys, and Anne Mincielli all won the Grammy Award for Best Immersive Audio Album. Congratulations to them, and now back to Nat Bartsch.
Yeah, one of her iconic albums, and it got Best Atmos Mix at the Grammys. And yeah, I wonder for Alicia or for any of the people that made the stereo album, and also her fans, when they go back and listen to the Atmos version, does it add value to the music, or does it just simply it's on par, it feels the same, or is it kind of odd to have a renewed look at something that you loved already?
Yeah.
And Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we can put a survey to your listeners.
Yeah. Okay. Please comment and tell us what you think.
Yes. Please write to us.
I was thinking about how you said, like, the Atmos thing can be quite, like, cost prohibitive, especially in, like, a home context.
Yeah.
But when you said that, like, you were hearing it through headphones,
yeah,
it was making me think, like, when I bought my new stereo, I could hear records that I knew really well, and then was noticing extra detail because
that's
it was
true.
like, oh, it's bringing out, like, extra clarity.
Yes.
And so similarly, like,
point.
there's more percussion parts that, like, are a lot, like, they're so tightly put in say, like, an old Michael Jackson record or something.
Oh, yeah,
but then on, like, a really good system, they all sort of, like, sparkle and stand out. So I wonder if it's, like, a cheaper way for someone to get into all those extra parts on a record.
That's very true. Yeah.
Space.
That is a really good point. Yeah. I think the main difference between what you described and the Atmos is the fact that all of a sudden you can hear things behind you, above you, to the side of you. And, yeah, whereas all of a sudden having a high fidelity speaker system where you get to see the stereo mix with more definition. Maybe it's just because I'm obviously of the generation that grew up. I mean, I was born before there were mobile phones. I got my first mobile phone in like year 9, year 10. And so obviously I've gone through that journey from cassettes to CDs to streaming and vinyl, and then so now listening to an Atmos record for me, I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
But perhaps over time the format will become much more familiar, and people can make that transition between hearing it in stereo and hearing it in multi-channel formats, and it kind of feels cool. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask, like, you're going to do heaps of interviews when your album comes out, and this podcast
I'd like to think so.
Well, it's definitely happening.
Please invite me onto your radio show.
I thought, given this is, like, coming out mid-2025, that, like, we could touch a bit on maybe some more of, like, the practical benefits of, like, this artist in residence program.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, like, some of the advocacy and stuff that you've been doing alongside it.
Awesome.
What's the, I guess, like, the most surprising benefit of having the artist in residence program that you weren't, thinking about until you were in it, and you were like, oh, this is so good that I have the ability to...
Yeah. So Melbourne Recital Centre ask an artist each year to be an artist in residence. And so it came out of the blue. There's no application process or anything.
Okay.
It's not like you submit a proposal like a normal grant. And so it was the best email ever. I was just crying, going, oh my God. And then had classic imposter syndrome, like, why me? But I actually have found that the best benefit is that it gives you permission to try something out. It's different to an artist in residence that might mean you get to hole up in a cabin in the woods for a month and do some kind of intensive creative work, and you're provided with accommodation and the space to be creative. Being an artist in residence at a venue in the city like the Recital Centre, it gives you kind of like a connection point for the year where you can present a bunch of different things to audiences. And so I've been able to do a couple of concerts, and I've done some community engagement stuff, like working with VCE students and doing a performance as part of their Relaxed series. But it's also just given me the incredible privilege of being able to test out some ideas I had for a live show in the salon.
Oh, cool.
Which is launching my next record, Forever Changed, and doing it in multi-channel live surround sound.
Wow.
And so a couple of weeks ago we did a preview show, and so we set it all up in surround sound. I got to nerd out trying to put fabric on the strings like a neoclassical piano upright thing, but on a grand piano.
Wow.
And it took more than an hour to get the silk that I'd organised to sit underneath the grand piano strings, and we had to create a whole system of threading it through. Again, it's the type of thing that normally in a venue like that you wouldn't have the time to do. Say you were bumping in for a show that day. You just couldn't waste an hour and a half doing that. And also, what if you'd spent an hour and a half on it and then it didn't sound very good? So this was like probably the one chance in my career where I had access to a grand piano, the permission to do it, and the time. And so there was this playfulness that I was afforded by having those 2 days of creative development. And then when we played the preview show, Forever Changed is trying to explore the neurodivergent experience of music and what is needed for autistic and ADHD people in particular to enjoy a soothing concert experience, because we have very different needs out in the world every day to what neurotypicals, if you can use the word typical, everybody's different. But what their sort of regular concert going experience is like for people. That type of general concert is sometimes not that comfortable for neurodivergent audience members. So I invited some autistic and ADHD people that had been consulting with me on the project, or they were existing fans. And then I also invited some music therapists who'd been guiding me. And I got to play the show in full and then get their feedback, which again, it's just would never happen otherwise out in the world. And it was so important because I wanted this live show, as well as the album, to sort of not just be considering my own neurodivergent experience or what I think is needed for a relaxed performance, but just really trying to get a read on what might be good for others. And I learned some really important things, like we had like a blue lighting state in the audience. So it was kind of, low lighting, which is generally considered to be a good type of front of house setting for an audience in a relaxed performance. Not to have no lighting, but just, low lighting. But we'd chosen blue. And then one of the people that came to the preview show was really upset by that, because there are these frequencies that the blue lights were generating that was causing a real sensory sensitivity for her. And I would never have had known that otherwise, that I had the opportunity to get that feedback from someone in the room before I started. And so we actually changed the lighting to be a colour that was more appropriate. And everybody else was like, yep, this is cool.
Wow.
And so that residency was just the opportunity and the permission to try some things out in a special performance space. It's probably been the best thing. Also just the pat on the back or something. Sorry, pat on the back's not the word, but just the validation that what you're doing is noticed and recognised by others is really good, because it's such a hard slog being a solo self-managed artist. And so someone emails you and they're like, we love what you're doing, can you do this? And it's like, oh, thank you. It's just no one gives me an end of year Christmas bonus, or I don't get a promotion at work. So it's the closest I get to it, I guess.
Well, it's massive congratulations to you for
Thank you.
being selected for the experience. And the album is amazing. Thank you so much for letting me listen to it.
Oh, no, thank you for listening.
Oh, it's stunning. I really, really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
So I'm keen for everybody else to get on board and, appreciate it as well.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I'm in that phase now where it's basically finished. Well, no, it is finished. It's getting pressed on vinyl right now, and
cool.
CD, and it's, in the system with the digital distributors. And I don't really have much of a frame of reference about whether it is going to be enjoyed by others. So your feedback today is super meaningful.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because by the time you finish making a record, it's like you're so sick of it. When you get that email that's like, your test pressings are ready to collect. Listen back to all 4 of them deeply several times to check for errors, and then let us know. That is the worst email I will get all year. I'm dead serious. It's by that point of the process, I'm like, I would rather listen to anything else.
I guess that's something lots of people don't think about if they're not a person who's putting out an album. With all the sorry, excuse Scout.
Scout is the mascot for the day.
My co-host, the silent co-host, who's not so silent.
There's always someone in a partnership that does the heavy lifting and the one that just sits around.
It's like I've got a producer that's like in, nearby, but like never on the show.
But really hands off. They just let you, they trust in your creativity.
Exactly. Yeah. How do you find it being an artist that, it's like talking about your experience and the meaning behind the music, but you're not a lyricist. So it doesn't have the like same, storytelling aspect,
that's a great question.
Of like a singer-songwriter or something like that.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because a lot of art music is instrumental, or almost all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we all have to find ways to kind of give our music context. And as I've moved more into the classical genre, it's, I guess, the genre of the composer notes. They might be the notes that you're reading in the program at a concert, or that they're written in the score before the notation begins.
Mm-hmm.
And then in jazz, I guess it's more the domain of being on stage and talking about your music, particularly if you're a performer composer, which most jazz artists are.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, of course, social media and press, like, doing podcasts like this and radio interviews. And so it's almost like it almost comes from a perspective of, it almost comes from the perspective of like, the word is so cringy for so many people, but it's almost like from a marketing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing is a terrible word to use, I think, because people immediately think that I mean commercial and schmoozy. Mm-hmm. But I really just don't think of that as a dirty word, because it's just the process of communicating your work to the audience. And if you don't use lyrics, you have to find other words to describe your music to the listener, and maybe that's on the microphone or written in a program or in a social media post or something on your website. But that is marketing, and it's irrespective of whether you're wanting to increase your followers or earn more money from your record because you get more streams or something, which of course are often the aspirations of marketing, to market a product and make sales of that product. I think in music of marketing as being the process of communicating your work effectively to an audience, be that 5 people in a tiny jazz club in Japan, or, a concert hall of 800 people, or, on the internet. And irrespective of what kind of measure you would have of success of that marketing, it's still it's a process of using words and images and storytelling to get your music to have context, and so people can hear it in the way that you would want them to hear it. Mm-hmm. And it's taken some work, but I do love writing. I love writing. I'm quite happy to talk as well on the mic, and maybe I do that a little too much. Probably you should ask some audience members; they can tell you. But so it doesn't bother me as much.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest challenge I have is that being an autistic person, we're often known as truth tellers. We really like being honest, and in fact it can be very cringy and painful to make any kind of lie, even if it's probably just normal to do so. A great example would be when you see a live show and people go, "This is our last song," and that's like turns to camera, "Actually, we have an encore prepared." I'm the type of artist that has to say, "This isn't the last song, but we are going to play this one," and then walk off stage, and then if you want to clap some more, I do have another song prepared. Like, that's the type of way I have to go with it. Mm-hmm. Because it just doesn't make any sense to me to say that it's your last song when it's not your last song. Like, cognitively that makes no sense, and it feels really unkind and disrespectful to the audience, even though it's absolute standard practice. And so my challenge with having lyricless music and then having to kind of put myself forward as more like a public figure to communicate what I'm doing, in the way that you would go on the radio and talk about your music. You're advocating for it away from your instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, it's always this balance between not oversharing and making sure that I'm kind of sharing enough of myself and the stories behind my music, which are often very personal, and it's capturing some difficult collective experience, that it's kind of like representing the work, and it's honest and authentic the way that I need it to be, which makes it quite vulnerable. But it's not necessarily all the sides of me. It's just the parts that I think represent the work best. And sometimes I get that balance a little wrong and might say something on stage that I wasn't ready to share, or that I regret later, or on radio, same sort of thing. Like I've done podcasts like this where I'd say something and then I have to sort of double back and go, oh, actually, I don't want the audience to know that just yet. Yeah. So, yeah. But I guess every artist who makes instrumental music has a different approach to those sorts of things. Some people are really kind of... the words that spring to mind sounds like I'm being judgmental, but I don't want to be. But, they use words that are kind of deliberately vague or open to interpretation, or it's a bit more esoteric in the way that they describe their music, and that's kind of part of their branding. They want it to be perhaps ambiguous as to what they mean, and that is equally valid, I think. But for me, I just have to kind of be real with people a bit, like, this song is about the end of my marriage or something. and then, of course, the challenge is making sure that my well-being is protected when I go and do that. But as I get older, I'm just also caring a little bit less about how things are received, and just trying to be myself, because also that is good for your well-being, not having some perfectly curated version of yourself out in the world either. Yeah, so
you found like the advocacy side of this, especially like with neurodivergence, has been like a net positive, even though like the vulnerability is like there, but also your audience is also engaged with that, and really, like, I know, like, reading so much about your music, like, it's used by people in like all sorts of different contexts, from like with like children for the lullaby music, and also like different like just trauma and calm like the music is so impactful in like such intense times of people's lives. That must be like so special.
Oh, incredibly. Yeah, it's like the best thing about being a musician, is knowing that the music I'm making has a place for some people in those types of incredibly personal, vulnerable moments, that it helps. I'm not a music therapist, but I love making therapeutic music that helps some people. That's the best. It's a real honour. I can't remember what the start of the question was. Oh, about seeing it as a net positive to have shared my neurodiversity. Yeah, so true. It's funny that you use the word vulnerability with it. I feel like I was more vulnerable when I didn't know that I was neurodivergent.
Right.
Because for a lot of late diagnosed autistic ADHD folks, of which there are many of us, particularly women, you kind of go through life always feeling like a fish out of water. You're kind of like, why does everybody else seem to have their shit together? And yet I'm struggling with so many things, and I'm always anxious, and I'm always not able to find something, or saying the wrong thing at a party, or getting totally over obsessed and over committed, and stressed out and burning out and all the things. I kept having mental health episodes, which a lot of them now, looking back, they would have been meltdowns or burnouts or shutdowns. These are all words that we use in the autistic community. But, before you know this stuff about yourself, they're often looked at in more of a mood disorder framework, like you're in a depressive episode, or you're having a panic attack, or things like that, or you're hypermanic. And I was just always left with this feeling like it just didn't make sense, because if I did have a mood disorder, then what about all those years of my life where I wasn't actually depressed or manic or anxious really in any way, and yet every day I still had difficulties with so many things. And in the music industry, that meant that there was a lot of things that I was required to do that I had no support for day to day. It might have been the sensory experience or the lack of planning and certainty about what work you have on or where you're performing. You've got, communication and masking challenges, especially when you're touring and you're with other people, 20 hours of the day. There are so many things that I just struggled with, and I did feel really vulnerable, and I nearly quit the music industry at least twice because I just felt like I wasn't the right type of person to cope with the demands of being a musician. And it was kind of more when I became a parent and made my first lullaby record that I realised that you can actually do music a little bit more on your own terms. And that was out of necessity because I had a newborn baby, that I just made this solo project at home, and it was easy to play and simple tunes to compose. And that kind of reset the expectations I had, which I needed. But ultimately, it was learning that I was autistic and then ADHD, and also going on ADHD medication. Like, I've never felt so calm taking amphetamines. Who knew? But it's just meant that, because I feel like I know who I am, and I'm able to get support for the things that are difficult, like practical daily living type things, but also out in the workplace, in my music. And I know how to recover from tricky things. Not always. I still have really difficult times in the year or the week or the day that, the sort of public version of me isn't necessarily sharing, that are hard. But on balance, I just feel like, I just turned 40, and it's like someone said, welcome to the decade of power. And I was like, that is such a weird thing to say. But then actually I thought about it and went, I do. I feel more powerful, only in the sense that I feel more comfortable in my own skin. And maybe that's the middle-aged experience. But also I think it's that I know about my neurodiversity, and I have more insight and compassion towards myself. And I've always been very honest about my mental health issues publicly as an artist, and so becoming an advocate for neurodiversity was very easy. But also I just figure anybody that judges me or would feel uncomfortable about me being so upfront about the things that I experience or am struggling with, anyone that wants to kind of stigmatise me, it's like, what a great way to filter out all the shitty people. If the ones that still want to book you for shows or hang out with you on the weekends or listen to your music or collaborate or have you on their podcast, they're the good eggs. So why not just be honest? And then anybody that thinks it's weird or makes them feel uncomfortable, it's, that's their journey. And I don't have any issue hiding these parts of myself, because I don't think it serves my world well.
It's interesting that you have had that journey of discovery and diagnosis and found effective treatment and management. But then also you've gone on to launch your own record label and it's not like you're simplifying your music industry output, and then also as part of the label you're adding an extra mentorship type role as well. So all of your personal challenges, and then you're that's adjacent to all of the challenges that are just for all musicians. But also I want to address them and help other people with them. Exactly. All of the different practical stuff.
I mean, there's a few things to unpack, I think, there. And the first is that, you know, starting a mentoring arm of my record label, part of that is just that I was ready to not do much teaching. That I didn't really want to teach a lot of students piano or composition or anything. And so in this kind of like portfolio type career that we all have, I actually much more enjoy at this point sitting down on a Zoom call or having a coffee with someone and learning about their music and challenges they're having in the industry rather than the music itself. And I'm loving tutoring classes and stuff in composition. But yeah, it's not, I just love to, the interpersonal aspect of teaching was the thing that really was important. And I feel like I can help more with industry skills and mentoring because there are so many great composers and piano players out there that can teach. But I guess the way that I've sort of navigated a lot of these other things to do with being a self-managed solo artist is maybe a bit more unique. So that's where I can help.
Yeah.
And it feels really nice to get out of my own head spins about my music and sit and listen to someone talk about theirs, which is good. But yeah, so that's more of a, yeah, as you say, that's kind of like a regular musician struggle to do with adding in extra stuff beyond the creating. And the record label thing was also, I guess, an exercise in articulating the type of musician I wanted to be between genres rather than trying to find a label that was focused on supporting the neoclassical side of me or the jazz side of me or anything else. I could just release what I wanted, but also the autonomy of when, who with, all those types of things that if you're trying to release with other record labels, you're beholden to their release schedules and who they would like you to collaborate with. Sometimes you get that amount of restriction. And, yeah, I loved the autonomy and freedom. And so both of those things kind of really represent my values as a human, I guess, trying to help people and also to be independent and autonomous and in control of my destiny. And both of those are inherently neurodivergent qualities, I think. We all have a lot of empathy and we all want to often feel like we can march to the beat of our own drum. But it's funny that the way that you described the multiple layers and complexity of my music career is kind of like being the antithesis of the living in a kind of neuro-affirming career that is accommodating my disability. Because actually it is part of the disability. That's why I overcommit myself and why I have to have lots of different projects because like a lot of ADHDers are very entrepreneurial in spirit and their brain is always going a million miles an hour and they're coming up with ideas and some of which you want to chase down and turn into real world things. And there's also, I guess, like the dopamine hit that you get when someone goes, oh, do you want to collaborate with this thing or, you know, can you do this commission or this gig or whatever, and you're like, yes, I can. But of course, ADHDers also have a lot of issue with executive function and planning, estimating how much time something's going to take and what your capacity is to do that. And then autistic people often really focus very intensively on a special interest. And so my special interest is my music, but also my music career, like all of the adjacent things like, I don't know, updating my website or producing an album or even like the emails don't bother me sometimes. And so I have two disabilities that would lend themselves to me overdoing it and coming up with these incredibly consuming and stressful plans. But I've realised that's a part of the disability as well as the superpower. Like, yeah, I recently heard about the concept of twice exceptional in it's often looked at in education, and it's to do with kids that might have some kind of neurodevelopmental disability or delay, like autism or ADHD or dyslexia or something like that. But twice exceptional kids are also very gifted. So they might have a very high IQ, but then they also have ADHD, which makes it hard to stay focused on the task or get it done on time, even though they have like the capacity with mathematics to be doing, year 8 level in grade 2 or something. But the challenge is like trying to get people to realise their giftedness in the face of like disabling parts of the experience of schooling or work that mean that you need extra support. So it's like you need support in 2 areas. You need support to kind of go out into the world and learn things that might be beyond your peers or in a different area to your peers. Like you might have a very niche interest or skill. Like music, I guess, is an example of that. Most musicians, you go to a party with all of your normal school friends or relatives and it's like, so how's your music going? It's like, you have no idea how to really explain what you do to anybody else other than musicians. But yeah, the way that you have to juggle those 2 things, I'm not necessarily a twice exceptional person, I don't think, but I think most musicians that are working professionally have a niche skill that's taken a lot of time and talent to get to this place, and often the cost is trying to juggle that with living in the real world and the expectations that are placed upon us in non-creative parts of life. And so for a neurodivergent person, that challenge is greater in the real world because it's just inherently not really designed for us. But I don't know, on the creative side, maybe there's parts of our experience that are easier. Like there are some things that I have created as a composer that have been put together in an extremely short period of time that have gone on to do really well for me. I feel embarrassed even saying that out loud, but like I've had pieces that were completed in an hour that I'm really happy with. I don't think they sound rushed. It's just I was in the right headspace and I think about these things quickly or something. I don't know. Or the way I could write a bio. I don't even really have a bio saved on my computer. I just write a fresh one each time. Yeah. Like I've got language abilities and I do have some saved, but I always rewrite half of them. I have no issue doing that. It just kind of flows out of me. And so when someone says, I've just found out I'm autistic or ADHD, I'm like, congratulations, because I know that there's parts of their life that are absolute superpowers. And the challenge is just making sure that the things that are difficult, they're able to get support for so that those abilities can really thrive and they can sort of feel really proud of themselves rather than like you're always a fish out of water.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, am I rambling too much?
Not at all.
Sorry, thanks.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Like the label of kind music, I think is totally lovely.
Yep.
What other words were you playing with before you decided on kind?
Great question. I think it was kind from the get-go.
Oh, cool.
But I think I realised there's a whole bunch of words that you could use to describe the music that I've released, which probably are a bit subjective, or at least there's words that I aspire to have my music feel like to listen to. things like it being ethereal or lyrical or glittery or emotional. And I realised that, you know, these adjectives were kind of more important to me than whether something is considered to be chamber music or classical music or jazz or any of the subgenres within that. So kind was just like a really simple one. And I'd like to think that kind is not, it's not as kind of superfluous as saying it's happy music. You know, I think because within kindness is often a lot of deliberate choices, like you are going to support a person or listen or be that, you know, good Samaritan, total stranger, and you're choosing to make a gesture of kindness rather than it just being an emotion that you might feel without any thought. And I think that taps a little bit into the music making side of what I'm trying to do, but also other artists that I really look up to or would love to work with, where there's like an intentionality to what they're doing, where you can see that they really want the listener to have that experience of kindness when they hear the music. So it's like a conscious act. And so kind probably represents that quite well compared to a lot of other, like, you know, music for calm or happy music. But yeah, I don't know. It's also the domain of the playlists now, right? Like music for cloud gazing or something. But that's not really the reason why I'm doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Thank you.
And amica means friend in Latin. So, yeah, and the mentoring side of the label, amica familia, as far as I'm aware, according to Google Translate,
Perfect.
Is Latin for friendly family.
Oh, that's, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, because that's kind of what we're trying to be. Yeah. Yep. And my partner Hayden as well, who does a lot of audio production and educating of tertiary students, and has worked in heaps of studios for a long time and worked with lots of artists. And same thing, I guess, trying to be that person that you can feel comfortable being real with and vulnerable with and sharing your worries about your music, but also the questions, like that I'd love someone to feel like they don't have to come across as impressive or polished in any way, that they could share rough mixes with me or half-finished compositions or just their deep-seated fears about their music. And I'm just ready to listen and provide my take on things, or in Hayden's case to, you know, very calmly and happily explain the absolute fundamentals of compression or how to plug a microphone in. And like it's trying to be a space for all of those additional skills that musicians discover that they need within whatever it is they're doing or are hoping to do, that you never formally learn at music school or even maybe out in the industry playing in bands and stuff. But it's not like you want to go and do an audio production degree. It's just that you want to learn how to, you know, do pre-production for your record at home, or you want to record your own piano so you don't have to fork out $2,000 on studio hire. And yeah, these are smaller sort of questions, and they don't necessarily require a 2-year diploma. They just need someone that's just happy to kind of teach or mentor in that very specific area. So that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, cool. Oh, it's so lovely. I think, like, especially in the context of, like, you know, the modern music scene where everything is marketed as a course, like you say, like, you do this course for this or 2 years here to learn this skill. Yeah. But, like, the industry's changed from where perhaps, like, you know, if the recording studios were busy, there maybe would be a place for an apprentice to come in. But like, not that much work.
It's not happening. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You don't have those, like, just natural forming, I suppose, like mentorships.
Yeah, that's so true.
Because they're all just marketed as a course.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Oh,
that's
come
so
and
true.
learn off like the best player in this field because he teaches at our institution or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even Hayden Buxton, my partner, he learned how to do audio engineering by being an assistant at Metropolis, which is like a massive studio in South Melbourne for many years. And yeah, so absolute like real world industry experience. But someone recently asked me, I would love to get into, being an assistant and getting some recording experience in a studio. And then I was like, I don't really know the answer to how you would do that. Actually, I'll have to get back to you, because you're right. It's like the whole industry has shifted so much, and I think partly that's the technology that's available and affordable for artists to put in their own homes, and that's a really good thing. But I also think that's been out of necessity because of the rise of streaming services and the way the economic model of making records is just completely flipped. And so it's a kind of brave new world, really.
Will there be a new new line of Nat Bartsch merchandise to progress with the income strategies of modern bands?
Yeah. Well, I'm really lucky that so far I've still been able to sell CDs as well as vinyl. It is changing a bit. I think the baby boomer generation and the seniors, of which some of my listeners are, particularly from ABC Classic, they're slowly getting into Spotify and that, they're getting to that stage. So that might shift how many CDs I might sell with the new record compared to previous. But yeah, I have been lucky that that's still been a source of income. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I sell sheet music PDFs on my website that you can download. And yeah, I've sold baby merch. Like for my first Lullaby album, rather than getting a band T-shirt for yourself, you could get like a onesie for your baby.
That's very cute.
Nat Bartsch on it. So I still got a few of those. Yes, I'm actually thinking of trying to sell some fidgets actually at my gigs, because these shows I'm doing of this new album, Forever Changed, there will actually be fidgets at the relaxed performances for people to, keep their hands busy and regulate while they're listening to my music. And then I was like, maybe I should just do like a wholesale purchase of a whole bunch of them and be like, did you like that fidget? Well, you can buy one on the way out. And then should I sign them? I don't know. Like a CD? I don't know. But I'm thinking about all these things.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. The one thing I'm trying to avoid with the mentoring is people feeling like they have to commit to something long term. Like you described, there's so many courses out there, online courses or real world courses. And then there's also you can join my Patreon type model, particularly for the YouTubers. And if you're trying to upskill in a particular area with an expert, that's often what you're encouraged to do to access everything. And who knows, maybe ask me in 2 years and I've got some Patreon running. But actually what we're trying to do is create like a way where you can book an hour, and it's not hopefully too expensive for people. And then we work on a particular thing that they want to work on, and then you just book another hour if you want to, again, in the future when you're ready. And it means that, people don't feel like, I'd like to think that it's something that can be integrated into any musician's world on an ad hoc basis, irrespective of whether they're doing 4 days a week teaching or really struggling to make ends meet and they can do one session a year or something. Or they might need to have me provide a letter of support for a grant to make it happen. But it's all kind of low key. There's so much of what we do is very pressured and stressful. I don't want the decision to get advice from us to be a stressful one either.
Yes. Oh, well, it sounds awesome.
Thanks.
I'll probably have to sign up for one when I put out some music or something.
Please do.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
Yeah. Also, because like I said, the main reason I love doing the mentoring is I get, probably like you and your podcast, is getting to meet all these different artists and learn about their music and help them answer some questions and get some confidence with it. And it's such a privilege to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I'm so lucky to have this, and just like sitting down to chat with you for an hour. It's very special.
Oh, thanks. It's special for me, actually.
Well, we've been playing this game on the podcast where I get guests to ask a question of the next guest.
Ooh.
So I've got a question for you from the awesome drummer Jerry Pantazis.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Jerry.
Who are your major influences and why?
Oh, great question. Totally on the spot. I struggle so much to even think of one artist when someone says that.
Well, I was really interested when you said I don't listen to music that's in the style that I create. I listen to everything else.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that my influences are everything else, though. My biggest influences, probably one would be actually, there's two artists that I studied with after I finished my degree at VCA. I somehow had the chutzpah to write to Tord Gustafsson and Nat Bartsch, who has Nat Bartsch's Ronin. We have the same surname, almost. He's got an umlaut over the A, and we're not related, but I now get to call him Uncle Nick, just for fun, because I went and studied with them both.
Right.
And so they're both ECM artists, but just wildly different in their approach. Tord has that kind of gospel-inspired, super meditative, spacious jazz piano trio. And then Nick is doing groove-influenced minimalism with a band that sort of works in a kind of improvisational way with polyrhythms that sort of slowly evolve over time. It's kind of like, I don't know, Prince meets Philip Glass or something. And yeah, wildly different. But I think the spaciousness and the patience of Tord's music and the use of ostinati or riffs from Nick's music, both of those things have really influenced the music that I make. But also I was really inspired by the way that they were so comfortable and clear about the artist that they wanted to be, and almost like an unwavering aesthetic. Totally, it was a totally refined kind of set of principles that they wanted to use in their music. And that was probably the common thread between the two of them, as well as being piano players and composers. And that influenced me from the absolute get-go. Because, when you leave a music degree, you're kind of left with like a lot of questions about what you want to do with your studies that you've done. And you'll learn about music. You've learned about music in a certain way. And so doing a jazz degree, I learned a lot about standards, and then started writing my own tunes and working a lot in that kind of lead sheet-based, rhythm section-based way. Although VCA in second and third year have an emphasis on writing your own tunes, which I am so grateful for. I wouldn't be a composer today if it wasn't for just being asked, so who's going to bring a tune in next week? And I was like, I guess I could write one. I'll try. That fluidity was awesome. But I still left that degree feeling like, I guess I'm supposed to enjoy playing through all the things you are. Should I write some more medium swing tunes? Should I play in a big band? Because these are parts of the culture of jazz music, which are really important parts, but they just didn't resonate with me kind of aesthetically in terms of what I loved about music and piano. So Tord and Nick, their music, and the ECM label in general, I think, and the process of going over to Europe and experiencing that, I think it just really reassured me that there's so many different ways to be a musician that improvises and composes, and you don't have to be everything. You just have to be the thing that you think represents you best, and then you just keep quietly evolving that thing And if you want to jump off in a different direction and make a Meshuggah cover band record, which I'm not planning, but you can. But yeah, that idea, it's like find out who you are and then keep refining what that means in music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, both of them really influence me there. Yeah.
Well, what would you like to ask our next guest?
Oh, that's a great question. If you couldn't play your instrument anymore for some terrible reason or maybe personal choice, what would you do to express yourself through music? How's that?
Yeah, that's a really cool question. Yeah, I like it.
Thanks.
Do you have some live like touring planned for the coming year, post the launch of this album and end of the residency?
Yeah, I'm going over to Europe in May next year, and at the moment that's focusing around going to classical next and seeing if I can develop some more opportunities for Forever Changed over in Europe in the future. Although while I'm over there, I'm hoping I might be able to do a show or two if I can. But actually, other than that, I don't really have anything booked in. So yeah, if anyone wants to book some shows with me. And I think actually that speaks to the issue that self-managed artists have, where you kind of end up in like a 2 or 3 year cycle where you have a year where it's just back to back with stuff, like you might release an album and do a tour or something, or you get asked to do a bunch of great shows, but they take a lot of work or something. I mean, obviously these are all very privileged and special musical things to do. But I found this also strangely during the pandemic, where I think maybe people were really seeking soothing music, and being a composer is a very home-based thing. And I had lots of opportunities to compose works for people. And then I made a record, and I'd received a grant to tour, and that had been postponed multiple times, but I did end up touring my lullabies. And I'm in a year like that again, where I've got the artist's residency and I'm making this record and live show, and I've had a lot of other experiences and that I'm so incredibly grateful for. But there is a capacity that I usually exceed. It's not actually possible to be a consistent manager for yourself as well as be a creative producer of new work. So often what I found is I have a year that's full of these wonderful things, but then things do have to slow because I just haven't had the capacity to foster the new set of possible gigs and opportunities. And yeah, I think the music industry's got a lot to, I don't know, not to answer for, but there's so many ways that you can innovate a small business these days, right? Like you can use Canva for marketing materials that you used to have to pay a graphic designer for, or you used to have to pay a website developer to maintain your website using WordPress or, writing code. And now you can pay a fee to use Squarespace or Wix. There's all these things that have empowered us to do everything ourselves. But there's a lot of danger in that, I think, because sometimes it actually is just not viable to do everything yourself, and you have to be careful, I guess, and not overcommit. And yeah, part of doing the mentoring is helping people to upskill with those other things. But I actually also spend a lot of time talking to artists about kind of expectations management. Like they often come to me with something like, I want to release this album in 8 weeks and a couple of singles before then, and I've got a live show that I want to do. And I'm just feeling really overwhelmed, and I'm like, this is not an 8-week process. You know, you have to do this over 6 to 12 months, and pace yourself. Like you've got a day job, or you've got kids that you're still kind of having to change nappies for, or whatever it is. You need to space these things out so you don't overcommit and burn yourself out doing all the music adjacent tasks. But yeah, me walking the talk is a little different. And again, I think that's part of my disability, is I totally misjudge time and capacity on a regular basis. But yeah, so next year we'll have to wait and see.
Exciting.
Yeah, but I guess I'm slowly just trying to be calm about that stuff and just hopefully trust the process, that when I have the time and space to think about what's next and also rest and recover and, you know, slow down, that hopefully some good things will come. And either way, I hope to meet some artists that are doing great things with their music, and that will be nice too.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting to see what will come in your decade of power.
The decade of power.
Well, we should finish up with 5 quick answer questions that we ask everyone on the pod.
Cool.
But thanks for being generous with your time.
Pleasure.
What is your favourite venue to play in Melbourne?
Oh, it's a cliche, right? But I should say Melbourne Recital Centre. But I want to say Melbourne Recital Centre because the salon is like, what a privilege Melbourne musicians have to be able to share their music in that space. And they're often artists that have smaller audiences. You know, we're not necessarily going to be on the stage of the Elizabeth Murdoch Hall or Hamer Hall or anywhere else. But that's like the one performance space in Melbourne where it's like you feel like your music is so valued because of the way that you can bring it to life in this acoustically and visually stunning space with technicians to help bring it to life. And yeah, like it's like a blank canvas also in terms of genre, which is great as well for artists like me. So yeah, it's a real privilege to be artist in residence and to have done some shows there over the years. And yeah, I hope musicians get to keep doing that.
What would be your dream venue to play at?
Probably a European equivalent of what I just described. Elbe Philharmonie in Hamburg, the Barbican in London, or Royal Albert Hall or something maybe. Yeah, give me a call, guys, and or call my booking agent in Europe. His name's Kai Lehman.
Excellent.
But yeah, probably venues like that have
cool.
You know, they've really attracted music lovers, and they're very genre neutral, but also exquisite spaces, and yeah, anything that, especially venues that might be bringing in surround sound infrastructure. I don't know whether any of the venues I listed actually are doing that, but yeah, places where you can do cool stuff. Yeah, that'd be good.
What is your coffee order?
An oat cappuccino. It's such a cliche to be a Melbourne musician and say that I drink oat milk with my coffee, but I do. Oat cappuccino.
What would be your favourite place to get food after a gig in Melbourne?
That is such a question that I would have answered very confidently like 15 years ago when I was doing R&B cover band gigs, and then we'd all go and hang out on Lygon Street or something afterwards. I can't even remember the names of the places, but there's probably other musicians you could ask that question to, and I would have been hanging out with them. I'd probably just go home. I mean, maybe I'm relieving the babysitter, or I have to be ready to get up and take my son to school or something. But yeah, I think there's nothing better than coming back from a gig and having like a glass of red wine and watching some kind of great TV show.
Oh, yeah.
It's my decade of power. I don't have to do more socializing after a gig, do I? I mean, really.
Do you come home like feeling like the buzz of the gig and you like watch a show because you couldn't sleep even if you tried?
Yep. one of the most insightful things I've had from discovering my neurodiversity, and particularly working with an OT, an occupational therapist, and a psychologist, has been thinking about the rituals and routines of gigs, and how to manage emotional and sensory regulation. And someone put it beautifully once when they said, okay, so it sounds like, for musicians and athletes, you have the warm down after you've, played an AFL game or whatever, where you've got to stretch your body out and kind of, slowly, bring everything back down to normal physiologically. But actually, for me, neurologically, and probably for a lot of musicians, I think it's like your brain is functioning at this incredibly intense level when you're performing, and then also if you're, a public-facing artist, like not part of a band, but you're the person that's going out the front and signing merch, or thanking the venue for putting you on, and all those extra things. Like, that's why I say by the end of a gig, I'm like, I'm at home. But yeah, I used to just think, okay, well, it's bedtime. And then I would just lie in bed for hours. Like, my brain would just be on fire. So yeah, I think TV's good. TV's good because it's, for me and for a lot of neurodivergent people, it's a communication break, which is good. Whereas going to hang out with musicians after a show means more talking. And sometimes that's pretty exhausting. So it's a communication break, but you're still getting input. There's no expectation of output, but you're getting input, so your mind has a chance to kind of wind down before bed. Yeah.
All right, final question.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
I would say everything is going to be okay. You might feel like nobody understands you and you don't know how the world works. And there's pain in your body and your mind thinks sad things and everything feels overwhelming. But actually, don't worry, it'll all work out. And one day you'll be playing your music to people and they will enjoy it. But it will be music that you're proud of. And everything will work out. Sorry about all the rambling.
Oh no, it's like the special thing about this podcast is just getting to meet amazing people like you that make great music, and it's nice, I think, just to have that experience that's real. So I don't think you're rambling, but it's nice to give you just the freedom to say everything you're thinking.
And also, I mean, that speaks a lot to my internalized ableism, that I have to worry that rambling might be annoying for people. And it's like, well, maybe in an alternate universe, people are apologizing for having a short answer to a question. And everybody talks for a long time like me.
Well, thank you so much, Nat. This has been awesome, and I love the new album. And
thank you.
Yeah, it'll be exciting to see what you're doing. In the next decade of power.
Yes, I look forward to seeing what happens as well. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on Our Drummers Musicians. I hope you enjoyed diving into the world of another musician as much as I did. Help us grow by leaving a review and sharing the podcast with your friends, family, favourite artist, or anyone else who might enjoy it. For more info and updates, visit ourdrummersmusicians.com. See you next time.